Today I want to speak about the little things, the small things. Most of us do not respect the small things. We always expect big things to happen, major things to focus upon. But the small things mentioned in the Bible and the small things in our life are usually behind great things in the future. Let's study this idea. It was written in the book of Zechariah, chapter 4. Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this temple. His hands shall also finish it. Though you will know that the Lord of hosts has sent me to you. For who has despised the day of small things? Let me explain what's happening here. Zerubbabel is a great servant who brought the captives of Israel back to their lands after many years of captivity. And at that time, the altar of Solomon were like destructed or destroyed in a way. So the Zerubbabel started with the people to build up, to renew the building of the altar. So many people did not respect this, did not look up to this. They despised the day of the small thing. They felt like, what would you do? It was a great building and nowadays it's nothing. Actually, the Zerubbabel started this work and after a few years, he finished it in a great way. That's why the prophecy came with Zechariah, do not despise the day of small things. Consider, respect, look up to the small things, because in the hands of God these things will be fruitful in the future. So the first idea, the small things are the start of big blessings. You all remember the parable given by the Lord himself when he said another parable he put forth to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all seeds. The mustard seed is the least, but when it's grown, it's greater than the herbs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the earth come and nest in its branches. Sometimes a little verse, sometimes a little sermon, sometimes a little event happening in your life. Someone you met him in a day, and these few minutes can change the whole life. Could be the start of a big tree in your life, fruitful life. So you have to expect that the small things and the small minutes and the small experiences may work up, in the future to bring up big blessings. Again, you all remember the story of the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. That was simply the meal of a child. But the meal of a child, when they brought him to the Lord, it was the great miracle mentioned in the 4 Gospels. And it was nowadays the meaning of, the blessing of God, the hand of God, the great gifts of God, because within this limited thing, which was the 5 loaves and 2 fish, we found out that more than 20,000 people were satisfied, had their meal, and also it worked our mindset to understand the Eucharist in the future, because when the Lord, had these things in his hands, he could make miracles, he could change things. And because of this transformation, we believe in the Eucharist. Also, in the story of the prophet Elijah, when a very poor widow came to him asking for his help, and she had nothing actually, and it had nothing but just 1 drop of oil. And that was the start of a big miracle and a big business, and it covered the whole life and get her many blessings. Also, the small things may hold big lessons. You know, the worm which in the story of Jonah and Nineveh, this simple small worm, when it worked with the tree which was shadowing upon Jonah, it was full of lessons. God made this as a big lesson to Jonah, that you do not expect many things from the nature. You have to be merciful like the nature, and you have to understand the merciful God and to be like God in his merciful actions towards people. The Lord said, "Why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field. The lilies are like small flowers. How they grow, they neither toil nor spin." So the lilies are telling us, do not worry. The small things speak about big lessons in life. Again, you all remember the widow which threw the 2 mites in the altar. These 2 mites were behind all the ideas of giving in a generous way, and relying upon the promises of God. And this widow was praised by the Lord himself. Another important thing, that the small things, but in the hands of big hands, big people, great saints, are different. Remember the rod. A rod was held by the hands of Moses, and the Lord asked him, "What is this?" He told him, "It's just a rod." This rod became the power of great miracles. It opened up the sea. It brought up the water from the rock. It was behind all the strikes against Egypt. And the rod became the rod of God, simply because it was in the hands of Moses. The great people, when they hold small things, these small things are now great. Also, when you remember the story of David, when he had the 5 stones, the 5 smooth stones in his, in his war against Goliath, simply the stone in the hand of David is different. It was behind a big triumph against this man, and the start of a big victory of the whole people of Israel against Palestinians. The small things will remind us also with the little ones. We need not to despise any of the little ones. The Lord said, "Take heed that you do not despise one of these little ones. For I say to you that in heaven their angels always see the face of my Father who is in heaven." So when you respect a child, that child speaks for God, because he still keeps the beauty of the image of God in himself. So please respect all children. Remember that there was a young girl. She was captured in a war between the Aramean people and Israelites at that time. And she was serving in a big house, followed by Syrian, the Naaman Syriani, the big man of the army of Aram. And that man had leprosy. And because of her faith, she guided him to go to the prophet in Israel, the prophet Elijah at that time. And because of the work of this young lady, the very young girl at that time, the war stopped between Aram and Israel. In evangelism, when you study the history of the church, you will find out that small steps and very little things behind great stories in all countries. Egypt, for an example, when Saint Mark came to this land, he was alone and he was very poor and he had nothing in his hand. But nowadays we had a great church, the Coptic Orthodox Church, because of this minute, because of this day, because of this man who had fears in his heart, who was just alone with nothing in his hands. but he had faith. Also, sometimes the small words may carry great power. Remember the word "follow me," given by the Lord himself to Matthew and others. Just the word "follow me," it changed the lives of many people. Also the word "do not be afraid," which you will find very much repeated in the Bible. Do not be afraid. It's like a powerful word which can give you real power and real faith in your life. So just respect the small thing, the small minutes. Do not consider that what's happening in your life is kind of, haphazard things happening. But actually it's all the plan of God, the work of God to guide your steps and to bring up big lessons and big changes in the future. May God bless you all. Amen.